We are now live.
Perfect.
Okay, wait. Okay.
Great.
3 people, Jonas.
That's good. That's a good start.
Yeah. This is good stuff for now. But it's early time for people to Jonas, but it's okay. We will wait. Okay.
Well, that's a good
We
start.
can. Yeah. Okay. We can start now.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome all followers from all over the world, especially MENA region. Today we have a special Facebook Live session under the title or titled Blockchain and Business. As you know, we are at a unique moment in history. Our society is in transition from an industrial economy to one defined by a new set of technologies, ranging from digitalization to nanotechnology. Among the latest waves of digitalization is blockchain, a technology that many say promises to redefine trust, transparency, and inclusion across the world. Blockchain, however, is a relatively immature technology and can create many problems as it can solve. The power of blockchain thus lies is not in technology itself, but rather in how it has reframed many discussions across various parts of our society and economy. Blockchain shows us there are options that we can organize our society in different ways. So now we have a unique guest. I'm really happy to be with us, my friend, Dr. Zara Zamani. Dr. Zara Zamani, she's one of 21 top women influencers in blockchain all over the world. Also, she is head of disruptive technologies at MetaBytes, problem solver, blockchain solution architect, and a lot more. Please, Zara, tell us about our audience more about yourself and your experience and career, especially in blockchain. Your mic with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. I felt so special. Hi everyone, I'm Zara Zamani, and I work as head of disruptive technologies at MetaBytes in Sweden. The title is quite unique or strange in a way. But what I do in my daily job is that I work as blockchain solution architect in our blockchain projects, but also a digital transformation strategist. I'm also a researcher and a lecturer at Halmstad University in South Sweden. But the best way I would like to introduce myself is that I'm a problem solver. So I've solved problems for the society, for the companies, and for people. And not only limited to a certain region, I work globally. So I work with projects all the way from Asia to Europe, to Africa, to Latin America, and United States.
That is so good. So we have a lot of tons of questions we can ask you, and we will look at your feedback and comments from our audience. Please share this video with in groups and different places on social media, so we can take a lot of comments from you, and we will answer it during this live session. The first question the people want to ask, and especially in our MENA region and all the world, what is blockchain from your perspective, and why there is a lot of hype about blockchain technology? Why is blockchain is different than any technology before it?
Yeah. Before I really want to say what blockchain is, maybe I should say what blockchain is not, because a lot of people think still confuse blockchain with Bitcoin. for a lot of people, the first thing that comes to their mind is blockchain is Bitcoin. So blockchain is not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just a cryptocurrency that is enabled by a technology called blockchain. So blockchain is a technology behind cryptocurrencies, and is definitely and certainly not limited to cryptocurrencies. There's a lot more to blockchain to explore for businesses than just the cryptocurrencies. But blockchain is that technology that it's a basically digital, distributed, decentralized ledger that is updated real time, is chronologically stamped, cryptographically sealed. These are all very strange words for someone who is not really coming from a technical background. I will explain all of this. It's peer-to-peer network, and then it comes with its own attributes that we will explain later. But what do we mean when we say cryptographically sealed? It means that the information that is sent from one node to other node is sent in a way that this information is only readable or understandable for whom it is meant for. So if it's between me and Zakaria, then the two of us can read and understand it. And the rest of you in the network can see that the transaction is happening, but you cannot read and understand it, of course. When we say peer-to-peer network, that means it's direct connection. So between me and Zakaria, I'm in Sweden, he is in Egypt, there is no other intermediaries involved. But in today's banking system, I always use banking system because it's an easier example for people to understand it. If I want to send money from Sweden to Egypt, it will go through a lot of intermediary banks, a lot of bureaucracy. It will take a lot of time. Plus, we also have to pay a lot of transaction fee to banks, which is the service fee that the banks are charging us. But in a peer-to-peer blockchain world, which is distributed and decentralized, there is no centralized banks that are intermediaries. So I send directly from my account to Zakaria account. I will pay almost no transaction fee, but at least it's minimum. And also real time, the transaction is happening much faster. So it's that technology, and plus it's irrevocable. You cannot change in blockchain, you cannot change the history. You can only make future. You cannot manipulate, you cannot corrupt the network. You cannot change what has happened already. You can only make future. That's why it's very auditable. You can really trust it when it comes to auditing.
We can say, Zara, blockchain will remove in a total way or entirely the intermediate person or institution that we see now, or not?
Probably I'm one of those blockchain experts that doesn't believe blockchain will remove intermediaries 100%, but it will minimize it for sure. It will remove a lot of intermediaries that we know today. But of course, with every technology that comes into the picture, there will be new intermediaries introduced to the market, right? Like what we call today exchanges. They are also, in a way, an intermediary between us and the blockchain world. But the intermediaries are minimized, and the intermediary cost for us as end users or for businesses is minimized as well, because the intermediary cost for a small or medium-sized business is too much that majority of the times is this cost that is not letting them succeed. So it definitely minimizes the intermediary costs.
Okay, this is really good. But the current business or current intermediate can work on it on blockchain and make blockchain work for them, or this is very difficult.
Yeah.
And they will change the entire way the rule of them. This is I think this is difficult.
Yeah, if you're thinking from the intermediary's point of view, right, this is a threat, right? If I'm a wholesaler, this is a threat. This is a technology that is a threat to me because I'm an intermediary, right? So I have to do something. And it is the fact that technology like blockchain, like AI, like IoT, they eventually change the job market, right? They do eliminate certain jobs from the market. But that doesn't mean they don't create new job opportunities, right? They create new opportunities for intermediaries to come into the picture. They can act as oracles. These intermediaries in blockchain world, they can act as validators because they have a lot of knowledge, right? They have a lot of knowledge, they have a lot of information that can be valuable for the network, so they can act as a different player. They no more act as an intermediary. They are not eliminated totally from the market. Their business model changes. So it's all about changing that business model. And to be honest, with blockchain or without blockchain, eventually business models of all businesses changes over the time, right? What we call today, how we make money today in an IT consultancy firm, let's say, is very different from how we made money 20 years ago. And for wholesalers, for distributors, for intermediaries, for banks are intermediaries. The business model changes as well. So the business model of the banks today is very different from 50 years ago. Or if 300 years ago, 200 years ago, in Egypt, let's say in Egypt, you would go to people and say, well, Egypt it was a very modern country thousands of years ago, maybe a bad example. Let's take Sweden as an example. If you would go like a few hundred years ago to people and say, okay, you know what? Give me all of your money and give me all of your gold, and I just give you a receipt that I have everything with me, and I keep it safe for you here. People will say, am I crazy? I'm not going to do that. Right? And that I was the bank. And eventually it happened. Eventually people trusted, and then the banks started with their own business models. But if you tell people today, leave all of your banks with money, they're like, am I crazy? I'm not going to do that. Right? Because the banking system also has changed. So there are a lot of more opportunities that is coming to picture, and banks have to change their business models. They have no other choice.
Okay.
So I don't see the blockchain technology, to sum that question, as a threat to intermediaries in a way, but as a force for them to be innovative in their business models.
Zara, you said that there is a new business model that blockchain will create.
Definitely.
You can give us more example about how business model will it change than this current area? For example, banks will be different. How? And the companies and the big corporation we billions of dollars. How will it change it?
Yeah. So we call blockchain Internet of Value, right? And what does that mean? We create a lot of value on daily businesses by either spending money or let's say we go to a store, we spend money. Let's say Adidas, we go and shop, and then we have some loyalty points that we receive in return. That is a value. It doesn't translate to numbers immediately, but it's a value that we created by spending money. We go to health clinic, we are visited by a doctor, and we generate data in a way there, right? Because we are being visited, we have our health data. So that is value that is created. We spend money either to see a doctor or whatever, or we committed to make that we spend time, we spend resources to make that value. But today, all of these values are gone to waste.
Yes.
As an end user, as a company that we create these values, we spend money, we spend resources, but we don't use these values. They are gone to waste. If we are lucky, we might get something minimum from the loyalty systems back, but according to statistics, only 67% of these loyalty systems are also gone to waste. So people don't really use it. But what we mean by building now bringing these values back to the economy cycle, right? In healthcare, let's say, we never know what is happening behind the scene with our healthcare data. What is happening? How does all these statistics that the governments give you, where do they come from? They use your data, they use my data, they use our data. But who owns this data? We don't own. It's our data, but we don't own. Or the companies that generate the private clinics, they spend a lot of resources to create this data, but they don't make any money out of this data, right? The government is actually using it only. Or if it's not government, if it's more private businesses, etc. But anyways, this economy is not shared with the real data owners. On the other hand, now there are companies that are rising in blockchain world that is creating that transparency to show who is generating data, who is creating what type of data, and finding all these data points and actually providing that transparency that where is this data going, the data flow, and also creating new businesses like, packaging these data. Of course, it's anonymous. Of course, data protection is important. And of course, all of those are taken into the consideration. But generating data packages for data centers, that is a new business model that is coming up in telemedicine and healthcare industry, for example, right? Creating specific data packages for healthcare centers, for governments, for universities, for research centers, that they can use all of this data that is gone to waste. But also now me as an end user, I'm aware that what is happening with my data, and I can actually basically sell my own data as well. This is a new way of...
This is actually very, very interesting.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't believe in the future the currency of the world is US dollar, euro, or Bitcoin, or any other cryptocurrency. I think the currency of the world is data.
Yes.
Then you decide how you exchange it. So Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies or fiat monies or whatever is just a mean of exchange of the real currency, which is data.
Okay, but there is a big question about privacy. How blockchain will work with privacy? We see that GDPR in Europe, that interface or opposite the blockchain.
Of course. No, of course. In every region that you work, with blockchain, without blockchain, right? You have to comply with data protection policies. If it's in Europe, of course, we have to comply with GDPR. And compliance with GDPR, of course, even not considering blockchain, there's a lot of different ways to do that. When we say, there is a mistake that when we say public and private blockchains, first of all, let me just explain what is public and private blockchain for those of audience who don't really know it. So in blockchain, we have public and private. Public blockchain is that ideal blockchain that we are talking about today, that transparent one that anyone in the morning can wake up and be part of this network. So it's accessible by everyone and transparent to everyone as well. Like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, these are public blockchains. On the other hand, we have private blockchains. Private blockchains are the ones that they are not accessible to everyone. So for you to be part of these networks, you have to go through some sort of KYC, you have to be permissioned to be part of these networks. And that they call them enterprise blockchains as well sometimes. So these are the blockchains that the enterprises use for their own purpose. What is the point of, for example, me waking up in the morning and seeing how is the financial system of IBM, for example, doing, right? It doesn't add any value to me. So, and I'm not also authorized to have access to that data. So that is private blockchain. A lot of blockchain experts don't consider private blockchains as real blockchains, but I certainly do.
Some people say a private blockchain is like a database. What's the difference here?
Yeah, so I certainly still do consider it as a blockchain, because at the end of the day, there are some business impacts that blockchain is going to have, right? And it doesn't really matter if it's providing that value to 5 people, to 500 people, or billions of people. Because every technology is as good as the impact that it has for the end users, right? If an enterprise needs to save time, needs to save costs, needs to provide transparency, needs to have auditability, and these are all attributes of blockchain technology for internal use, then why not? Let's just have it for internal use. Why do I'm not authorized to have access to information of all the private companies today. Why should I have it all of a sudden after blockchain? It doesn't really make sense, right? So yeah, so we have these private and public blockchains. What was the original question? I forgot. Sorry.
The original question about the private blockchain, and I think this is the original question. But we can turn to another question. You said that there is a validator. So the question: what are the consensus mechanism that is usually used in business network that is different than the consensus algorithm that used in public blockchain, for example?
Okay, so before we go to what are the consensus, let's talk about what is a consensus.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And before we go to what is a consensus, let me explain the difference between Bitcoin blockchain, not the cryptocurrency, because Bitcoin is both a cryptocurrency and a blockchain. Bitcoin blockchain and Ethereum blockchain. So people understand what is smart contract, and then we can talk about the consensus as well. So we have Bitcoin, which is the biggest or the most known public blockchain.
Yes.
But it's only a blockchain designed for a cryptocurrency. You cannot run any application on top of Bitcoin blockchain. On the other hand, after Bitcoin came to the market with this limitation, Ethereum decided, okay, now Bitcoin is having all these features, why not allowing companies and people to build applications of their own like Bitcoin? So Ethereum came that as a public blockchain that you can actually build decentralized and distributed applications on top of using smart contracts. So smart contracts are just codes. They're codes that they are through some pre-authorization. They automate, digitalize the manual, bureaucracy, time-consuming, costly contracting ways of us today. So smart contracts are just making that quicker, etc. But then how does blockchain work now? Is let's assume that we are all part of a blockchain network, and Zara and Zakaria, and we have very similar names. They want to transact. They want to have a transaction with each other, right? So I will broadcast my request to the network, and then the network will validate my request through some sort of consensus algorithm. So consensus algorithm is that algorithm that through that the network decides that this is a healthy transaction. This is validated. Okay, it's good to go. So it's that algorithm. And once it is validated, then the block is created and is added to the network, right? So that is what we call consensus algorithm. But there are different consensus algorithms for different blockchains as well. For the whole blockchain started with Bitcoin, which was on proof of work algorithm. Proof of work consensus is the consensus that includes miners, is the consensus that is about solving that very complicated mathematical equation as a miner to be able to validate. And of course, once you are the miner who validated the transaction, you are rewarded back with it. So that was the incentive behind being a miner at some point, that this reward is also getting, almost every 4 years is getting half and half, and is expected by, I think, year 2140 is expected to be 0. So, but anyhow, you are rewarded with it. And that is why they call proof of work is the consensus against climate, because to fix all of these complicated, complex these mathematical equations, you need a lot of computing power. And this computing power means electricity, right? And that means it's not a green technology. And that was a lot of, criticized against blockchain initially, that it is not green. It is not green. Yeah. It's not going to help climate. And that is what we also heard, was it yesterday, I think, or the day before yesterday, that Elon Musk actually decided not to accept Bitcoin anymore for Tesla because it's not green, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then, of course, there is this green Bitcoin who is trying to mine through renewable energy, but still not green, definitely. Then Ethereum decided to come up with another consensus called proof of stake. The whole consensus principle is to validate the transaction, but also to keep the security of the network, right? You need to keep the network as secure as possible. Then proof of stake came into the picture, that it says it's about how much stake do you have in the network, right? How the higher your stake in the network is, the higher you have chances to vote or to validate the transaction. And the logic is that the ones with higher stake in a network care more to keep a network secure. Let's say if I have 100 eggs in a basket and Zakaria has 2 eggs in a basket, who cares more about the basket to be safe?
100.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely care more, because if the basket is gone, I lose 100. But he loses 2, so he's not really going to care as much as I do. So that was the proof of the stake. That of course, then it doesn't involve any mathematical equation solving. It doesn't involve any computational power, and it's much greener. And it's actually a green technology, so you don't use any energy for that. Of course, then other algorithms came into the picture. But when it comes to private blockchains, like Hyperledger Fabric is a private blockchain, is an enterprise solution, or Corda is an enterprise permission solution as well. They are either, they have, they are very flexible in terms of you can have plug-in consensus. You can change consensus over time. You can there are consensus that are used as delegated proof of stake. That means you can also now delegate your stake to someone. If I have, like, let's say 5 voting power and Zakaria has 10, I can give my 5 to Zakaria, saying, you know what, I trust you more, and you hold my right to vote as well. So you will have more right to vote, and eventually the 21 that have the top stake that are also available at the time of validating will validate the transaction. They will have the chance to validate the transaction. We have proof of authority as well for enterprises, because sometimes when you use in a business, you don't want, let's say you're using this in your financial department, right? You don't want everyone to have this chance, right? What if all of the employees delegate their power to one of the other employees who really doesn't have the right to validate a financial transaction in the company? So you authorize, they call it proof of authority. You authorize your CFO, or you authorize people that these are the people who validate the transactions. We have proof of elapsed time, which is also called the most fair consensus. There are so many different consensuses, but these are the ones that are mostly used, of course.
But the business, which one? Okay, there are a lot of different consensus mechanism or algorithms, but I read that IBM use endorsement or selective endorsement mechanism to make a consensus in business blockchain or Hyperledger. How it's different than this different?
Well, it's basically pretty much like the proof of a stake or delegated proof of a stake, basically, that is used. And to be honest, you cannot say which. You can never say which consensus is the best consensus for business, right?
Okay.
it's like saying which financial solution is the best solution for businesses.
No,
because
don't.
every business defines its own financial needs, right? Consensus is the same. So, and this is what architects do when they're designing a solution for business, right? We look into what is the ecosystem that this business is working with? Who are the stakeholders? What type of roles do we have? And these type of roles in the network define the nodes as well, right? And then what kind of transaction do they do with each other? How do they what do they transact with each other? And then how do they validate? So the way that you validate a transaction in business is very different from the other business, and based on that you decide which one is the best one for you to use in this solution.
Okay, for example, if we say that there are consortium blockchain or federated blockchain and consists of 5 or 6 organizations, who will determine the validator and operator and like this?
So we have when we have we call that consensus. We call that the consortium blockchain, right? When there are multiple organizations involved, then the businesses together decide that, because it's a business logic, right? The business logic decides that. The business let's say in a consortium blockchain on supply chain, we have manufacturers, we have logistic companies, we have custom companies, we have distributors probably, and the end user, right? The end user, of course, is not part of this decision, is part of this consortium. But all of this consortium, when they sit together and they decide to work on blockchain or build this blockchain application together, they already know how this validation is being done. It's now all about defining the roles and designing that consensus for them.
Okay, so we can say Zakaria and Zara, if Zara buy a goods from Zakaria for 50 pound, maybe this transaction is incorrect or against the law. How blockchain will prevent this transaction not happen? Because you said that the validator, we determine the validator before it.
Okay, so let's imagine a banking system, right?
Yes.
So today we go back to me sending money to you, right? I'm gonna send you money from Sweden to Egypt, and then we have probably someone in the audience who is, let's say, in US or in Hong Kong, right? So it's a network of 4 of us, right? And we are part of normal banking systems. What I do is I want to send money, and we all have our own accounts in, let's imagine, SEB Bank of Sweden that works globally, right? You are in SEB in Egypt, SEB in China, SEB in the United States, SEB in Sweden. So what I do is I send my transaction request to the bank here in Sweden. They check my account. Do I have the money? Yes. Then they check you with your account, with your bank. They send them this money to your bank. And then this process from continent to continent can take up to 10 days even. And of course, there are costs. But the ones that are in the United States and China have no clue that this is happening, right? Now, let's say that eventually this central bank is bankrupted or is hacked, right? All of these data can change. Or let's imagine this is not impossible. I am telling you, this story has happened recently with one of the Swedish banks as well in Poland, the branch in Poland, that you actually, let's imagine the banking system is corrupted, which is not a surprise to most of the countries in the world. Well, if not all of the countries, there's some sort of corruption always, right? And I don't have the money in my account, and I still want to send you the money. It is very easy to make my account look like I have that money and actually send the money to your account from the treasury of the bank. So what is happening now is that even though I did not have the money is sent to you. And this money is probably deducted from the accounts of people in the United States and China, and they have no idea about this.
Okay.
If they're lucky, the bank works and eventually replaces the money. If they're very unlucky, the bank goes corrupted and they lose the money. The bank goes bankrupted and is gone and they lose the money, right? So when the transaction is a wrong transaction, no one can see it and stop it, because there is a central house of control that is deciding about it. But now imagine that we are all part of the same banking system on a blockchain network, right? And now I don't have that money, and I want to send that money to you, Zakaria. I have to broadcast to everyone, and they look at my account. So, but you don't have that money. Then it's not validated, right?
Okay.
Then the mine.
The other parties and the blockchain can validate the transaction or see it.
Sorry.
The other parties or on the blockchain network can validate the transaction.
No, let's say if they're validators, okay? Let's imagine if, of course, not everyone, but the transaction needs to be validated if it's on proof of work by at least 51% of the validators. So 51% of the validators, they need to agree that this is the right valid transaction. And if less than that, they are agreeing that makes it a risky transaction and it's not happening. So, and this 51%, let's say you have 100 validators and they don't necessarily know each other. So, and 51 people from this 100 that are all around the world, they don't know each other. They're not your best friends to vote for you. They need to validate your transaction. If they don't validate it, then it's not happening.
Okay, but public blockchain is, as you said, it's not good for business, for privacy. So we
for
can
some
use
businesses. No, for it depends. For some businesses, it's very good.
Okay. So the another question, you said that there is a smart contract. What's the difference between smart contract and traditional contract and Ricardian contract?
Yeah.
I read that there is something called Ricardian contract.
So you can always automate your manual contracting, right? Like recording or contract or whatever we call it. There are so many ways of digitalizing your contracting system to save time and cost, etc. as well. But there is also when it comes to contracting, there is also a lot of requirements for auditability, for irrevocability, for immutability. And that is what blockchain is bringing to contracting system. And of course, when it comes to businesses, then now you want to make sure that you basically use a platform with a smart contract that makes that contract legally binding as well, because there's a lot of legal requirements. And not all the blockchains smart contracts are legally binding. You have to keep that in mind, right? So I think among the blockchains, the private blockchains, Corda is the one, the permission blockchain for businesses is the one that is providing legally binding smart contract solution. So now you are automating it, you're digitalizing it, but it's also irrevocable, but it's also auditable. And you can also, generate innovative business models based on the transparency that you have on blockchain platform that comes with this smart contract. But also it's legally binding. You can go to court with it, because that is very important for a business. You don't want to just, have a smart contract. You want to make sure that you can go to court with it if anything goes wrong.
Is a smart contract is legal binding, or there is now
not all of them. Not all the blockchains are providing legally binding smart contracts.
Okay, there is now like a legal framework for organize a blockchain or a smart contract or not. I read that there is some states in United States, but I don't
Yeah.
actually.
In general, of course, I'm not a law expert, but I can tell you in general, in terms of regulation, there is still a long way to go. We still need a lot of regulations in picture for blockchain and smart contracts. Of course, they're all this included with blockchain, but some states, for example, in United States, since 2020, banks now can hold cryptocurrencies. Banks now can buy cryptocurrencies for their customers. So there is a lot of regulations that are, or some courts accept the smart contracts on Ethereum, and that goes from state to state as well. Then you come to Europe. Germany has its own regulation. Sweden has its own regulation. You go to Egypt, it has its own regulation, and you go to Turkey, which was very open, and since last month crime with the cryptocurrency, then it's banned in a way. So regulations for cryptocurrencies, for blockchain, for smart contracts is very regional now. It very much depends on the the authorities and the regulation makers and policy makers, etc. But in general, Corda is that enterprise solution that provides legally binding smart contracts. So it doesn't really look into whether you're using blockchain or whatever technology. You can go to court with that smart contract.
Okay, so there is blockchains are legally binding and other is not. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the most questions, or I think this is a question is very important. What is the challenges that face or really face organizations that want to adoption or adapt a blockchain solution? For example, if Zakaria is a corporation and want to take the advantage of blockchain solution, what are the steps and the challenge that will face Zakaria?
This is a very interesting question because we have so many different technologies that come into the picture every day, right? For businesses. But technologies like blockchain, because they question everything. They question your core, they change your infrastructure, they change, and they introduce a new world to you that for people, a lot of the complexity for blockchain is not the technology, it's understanding the concept of the technology, right? So that is what it makes it different. And from my point of view, and not only my point of view, because my research field is also in adoption of blockchain for small and medium enterprises. From my research result also, the biggest obstacle in adoption of blockchain is the culture and management mindset. It's not the complexity of the technology. It's not the scalability of the technology. Of course, the technology is immature. It's none of this. It's about the mindset and culture. When it comes to blockchain, if you talk to business leaders, the first thing that comes to their mind is fraud, cryptocurrency. They're scared. They think this is illegal, and they're going to get into some illegal activities that they don't know how to fix it.
CEO and the manager think about this. Cryptocurrency is blockchain and is the same way.
The first thing that comes to their mind is fraud or complexity. They don't know how to deal with it. They are scared because they think there is no regulations for it. So that fear and mindset of the business leaders is the biggest obstacle. While if you look at it as a technology, first of all, it's like any other technology that you adopt on daily basis, right? You just have to understand the concept of it. It is, you don't need to have regulations for all of it because DLTs are regulated anyways. Blockchain is another DLT. And if you're not getting involved with cryptocurrencies and financial attributes of the technology, why are you so worried about regulations? Because blockchain is a lot more to only limited to financial systems, right? if it's going to provide it, and then when I talk to business leaders, because we at MetaBytes we have this special service basically that we call it Blockchain 101, that we provide we have workshops with businesses, etc., that we go through all the ecosystem, etc., and at the end we provide them with a use case, with a robust use case of blockchain in their business. But this is where you can use blockchain, and this is the effect, whether it's efficiency, whether it's automation, because blockchain also helps a lot with automation, a lot actually. So at some points, blockchain and AI can actually be, interchangeably working with each other. So
I will ask about this question.
yeah. So I would say the biggest obstacle is the mindset, awareness, lack of education and culture. But then, of course, when you look at the technology itself, the technology is still immature. It has matured up a lot, but it's still immature. It is mature enough for smaller applications, but when it comes to international applications with billions and hundreds of millions of users, then the scalability is a challenge still. There are other challenges which I think when it comes to businesses it's irrelevant. I think it's mature enough for businesses.
So the business can't use full adoption of blockchain, can use it for some part of the business, not full or the whole business. So we can say we can't replace the ERP systems with a fully blockchain solution.
Well, we have a client that we are actually replacing their logistic solutions with blockchain for their supply chain.
Replace the whole system for blockchain?
Oh, not the whole system, because you still need data points at some point. Some of the ERPs are still working with the blockchain system as well, but they don't need to add any more, because there is a point of, even if you have as many ERP systems, first of all, it depends that when these ERP systems were bought. If they're legacy systems, they're painful to work, and eventually you have to replace them, right? And then secondly, sometimes these ERP systems are working as your data points in your blockchain as well. So you need to keep them. But even if you have different ERP systems, you still need to have that aggregator system, or integrating them to have that one helicopter view of what is happening, and that is what blockchain is providing.
Okay, so the current case, we make integration between the ERP and blockchain, not fully replacement. Yes.
Sometimes you can replace some of them. Sometimes no.
Sometimes there's no. It depends on the case or situation.
Yeah. But I believe blockchain is the shortcut for digital transformation, because if you're a company that has not been digitalized much, then you can just immediately just use blockchain and not have any ERP systems.
Yes, it's the best solution.
It's a shortcut. It's a shortcut. That's why you see a lot of proof of concepts or a lot of small projects in developing countries compared to developed countries, right? Because when you come to countries like Sweden, we are so digitalized here, digitalized, like that sometimes replacing all these legacy systems or digital systems that have been here for years is very difficult, or working on top of them is very difficult for businesses, compared to countries like Iran, which is my home country, that of course is very advanced in technology, but is still not as digitalized as a country like Sweden. Then it's so easy for companies, so easy to adopt blockchain technology and now have a shortcut, immediate shortcut to their digitalization.
Although if there any company don't have the basic, or any country doesn't have the basic of digitalization, have the background of digitalization, like you using traditional systems, how to make the difference or shift to blockchain in one way. I think it's difficult.
It is difficult because you even if you use blockchain, you still need to tokenize, your asset. You need to change your physical asset to digital assets. But and that of course makes it easier if you're digitalized already, and more difficult if you're not digitalized. But it's like, sitting on a starting an IT project from scratch that you code yourself, or sitting on a bad code. Which one do you prefer? I prefer to start from scratch than actually going through a bad code, right? So it's exactly the same thing. So when you're sitting on a digitalized system, sometimes it can be acting as the bad code that makes it more difficult. But sometimes it's an enabler. It very much depends. But when you are in developing countries, then you're only faced with that tokenization or digital asset transfer. Other than that, it's because businesses have greater need for lowering the cost. When you go to developing countries, there's a lot of intermediaries, because they're less digital. The less digitalized you are, the more intermediaries you have in business. This is very proven.
Okay, Zara, you said that digitalization. Okay, is the blockchain is only for physical or digital assets, or both of them is okay?
No, it's definitely for both. For example, intellectual property is not a physical asset, right? Intellectual property is an asset that you can still record the property ownerships on blockchain, for example.
Oh.
So it doesn't really matter.
Okay, so the next question about tokenization. What is tokenization? We read that tweet someone paid for $20 million for just tweet. How this thing can be?
It's again about that value, right? So when we say paying 20 million for a tweet, why does it worth that much? I'm gonna ask you this question: why not? How do we know what is the real value of it? We have a tweet from Elon Musk yesterday that changed the price of Bitcoin by 10% at least, that changed the price of Tesla stock market by 10% at least, reduced them. So why not? Do you know how much it worth, the value of this? So tokenization is that means. Of course, it creates bubbles as well, and that is very, very normal for a new technology, right? Because people get hyped, they come to the market, then they create the bubble, and eventually it will stabilize itself. But it's the means that is actually showing the real value of physical asset or a digital asset or a content that I created, right? So first of all, that shows that how much I can make money with the content that I'm creating and I'm not owning, right? The content that you create content on YouTube, right? But you don't own it.
Yes.
I create a lot of content on LinkedIn. I was actually one of the top 50 most influential women on LinkedIn in 2019, but I don't own my content, right? But what if now I want to sell my own content and I want to tokenize it? And when we say tokenize, it means I want to give a bit of this content to everyone.
Okay,
right? Yeah.
Okay, but I think it's really hard to do it.
You mean it's hard to tokenize?
Yes, because
of course, when it comes to token, so one of the it's not a challenge. One of the milestones or tasks that is difficult, is really difficult, is tokenization of the assets when it comes to building a blockchain platform for a business, right? Because let's take an example of Walmart farm to fork project. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's a supply chain platform that records this whole supply chain network from farm, from the very, very source of the food, to fork, to end users who are actually eating the food, right? And that means when I buy food from supermarket, then I can see actually like which farm it came from, how was it watered, what food they gave this, if it's a meat, what kind of quality of the meat it is, which country was produced, and I can check everything on a blockchain, right? As an end user, I can see everything about the food, whether it's really a green food or not, etc. But when it comes then, and now imagine like you have 1 ton of wheat, and this 1 ton of wheat goes to become 200,000 kilos of flour. Tokenizing this is very difficult. How are you going to tokenize this? So then it requires a lot of discussions with economists, but also industry experts, like how much wheat gives you how much flour. And then tokenizing this, so to make sure that if 200 kilos of flour makes 400 packs of flour to the supermarket, then you actually manage to tokenize it economically the right way. It's not an easy. It's not easy to summarize it, but definitely something that needs to be done.
Some people say that we are living tokenization economy. What's the expression? What does this mean about this expression, tokenization economy? Everything will be tokenized?
Yeah, it's all about pricing, because so how you make a pricing of a product today is done by economists in businesses, right? Of course, if you're a very small business, you look into how much you spend, and then you add the 20% or 30% on top, and then you sell it to the market, right? So you don't have much problem with tokenization if you're that size of company. But if you are, let's say, P&G, so you have hundreds of brands and you have so many different products, and then you have to compete in the market. So of course, economists come into the picture. They check your pricing, they check your competition pricing, they check the taxes, the cost of logistics and everything, and then they decide on the pricing. For this, the same thing is for tokenization. You need economists come into the picture and decide on the price of a token for you if it's about a physical product. If the discussion is about NFT and art and music, that's a whole different thing. So let's not.
So this is what? Okay, this is the main question for what's the types of tokenization. I read that security tokens, utility tokens, NFT. What's the difference between all of them?
So it's different tokens for different purposes. So you have NFTs, which is non-fungible tokens, basically, which are like your like a digital signature of an artist, right? So basically today, let's say in a physical world, there is a painting by an artist that does a signature below the painting, and then you, of course, you test it and you make sure that this is a genuine painting, and then that signature is that actually the thing that adds value to that painting, right? If you take that signature off, the value is not as much as it is with the signature. So, and then NFTs are actually digitalizing that signature on blockchain. Plus, now instead of allowing only 1% to buy that painting or that signature painting, now you can decide whether it's going to be sold once or it's going to be sold. As an artist, you can decide that I want to have 100 people to have this, to have right over my painting. I want to have, so basically you can be very creative with different types of tokens. You can be very creative with how what kind of business models you want to have.
Okay, so we can say if you have a house in Sweden and Zakaria want to buy it, I can buy it through token. You have a house in Sweden and I want to buy it from Egypt. I can buy it through a blockchain network, through something like token.
Yes,
maybe in the future.
You can not in the future. Today you can buy houses in Hong Kong, I guess, by Dogecoin.
Dogecoin.
Yeah, and Dogecoin is a token as well, right? So you can. It's not. We're not talking about future. It's about today.
Future is today.
Yeah. And I think I shared this on my Instagram yesterday. The article about it, that you can actually buy houses now with token, and both physical and virtual. And that is the interesting thing about it, right? So I don't remember the name of the company, but I have a talk show on blockchain called Chain Talk that I actually interviewed the CEO of the company. That is a gaming company that you actually own virtual. So it's exactly, let's say, Cairo, but a virtual Cairo. So you go to the streets of Cairo and you decide which house in Cairo, virtual street of Cairo, you want to own digitally, virtually. And you can, it's a game, but it's predicted that in the coming future, this is exactly how you will own properties. So you will basically, it doesn't really matter if you physically own it, it matters if you virtually own it first.
But I think it's the world will face legal challenge.
Of course,
and taxation. For example, how this transaction the people do it without taxation.
No, that I definitely agree, because the regulations still are not in place. So when it comes to, of course, taxation, when it comes to buying house, a lot of things are still have to happen off the blockchain. So only the property ownership exchange is happening on the blockchain, and the rest of the taxation and whatever that is required in terms of regulation is happening off the blockchain. Probably, I'm not really sure how that blockchain works, but that is my prediction, that is how I think it is happening, my assumption. But of course, we still have some way to go to have everything on blockchain. But will it happen much faster than we think so?
You said that Zara also there is DLT and blockchain. How I differentiate the systems that using DLT and blockchain? Because I read that they actually blockchain today not using blockchain, they use DLT technology.
Yeah, well, we have so decentralized ledger technology is not something new to the world. It existed from before, but then the cryptography that is added to it, the immutability, the consensus, all of these are new. These are all the new features that were added to DLT by blockchain and makes it very unique. Otherwise, DLTs existed from before. It's about how you store. It's basically about you storing your data center. So it existed before. It still exists today. A lot of companies are using it, but having that transparency, immutability, chronological stamping your transactions, these are all the attributes of blockchain to DLT.
So the difference between DLT and blockchain is cryptography that used in blockchain.
Cryptography plus the consensus algorithms, the validating, all of this, the peer-to-peer network, and all of these mechanisms that are added that makes it more secure, the security of it as well.
Another question, some people want to know about the real use case of blockchain, especially in finance and accounting, for example, because we read a lot of hype about blockchain. This is something is actually found in reality, or just reading or theoretical one?
Well, to be honest, if you want to think of blockchain and finance is the primary beneficiary industry of blockchain, right? But on the other hand, adoption of blockchain in finance industry, even though it's the most relatable industry, even though it was the first industry that started with blockchain, is the slowest. And that is because of regulations, because there's a lot of strict regulations, and governments are involved. And when governments are involved, that means the control is extremely high compared to other industries. But none of it is myth. All of it is actually true. And having that transparent, decentralized, plug-in, and financial system that we were dreaming about, we were talking about, actually came into the picture when DeFi came into the picture in 2020 as well. So it was the intention of Satoshi to create that democratized financial system. And it did happen with Bitcoin. Not that it did not happen. It did happen with Bitcoin, and then it got much better, and it's getting more innovative with DeFi, decentralized finance, that has started in 2020, and it's actually quite hyped, quite hot these days as well. So, and that is when, for real, you exchange money from Africa to Europe over seconds with no transaction fee. That is the reality. So, but
yes,
is it happening? Yes, it's happening.
Yeah, using a Rebel blockchain. But I need to know about our audience need to know about more application of finance using blockchain technology. Is there something? There is?
To be honest, if you want to think about it, all of blockchain applications, no matter what industry, is about fintech. All of it is about fintech. So we say blockchain in healthcare. Then again, some sort of token or cryptocurrency comes into the picture that is about transaction and exchange, financial exchanges. We talk about blockchain in supply chain, and everyone loves the transparency. But again, there is some sort of cryptocurrency that comes into the picture for facilitating payment between the stakeholders in the supply chain. So we like it or not, all of blockchain transactions in all industries are intertwined with fintech, with finance applications of it. But in general, when it comes to fintech, there's of course international remittance is an application. The settlements is another application of blockchain. Insurance is another application of blockchain. So there are so many different. The whole purpose of financial systems is to create secure, fast, and cheap way of transacting. And that is, of course, what blockchain is providing to financial systems.
Okay, so another question. Is there any state or companies need to have blockchain strategy to convert to blockchain solution or not? It's not important, or using just digital transformation strategy.
I think if companies don't have a strategy of adopting blockchain, they are behind. They're way behind.
I agree with you.
So if you're a company, you don't have a strategy now, or you don't have a strategy by yesterday, do it immediately, because blockchain is for real a disruptive technology. So it is going to change our lives exactly the same way internet changed our lives. So, and I'm so happy that now it's very different, because I started working with blockchain since 2015. And then until last year, I would say that rarely I found people who knew about blockchain. And every time I told people about what my research is or what my job is, they're like, the first question was, what is a blockchain? You know, but now people, even if they don't know what blockchain is, but they know it's something that is going to make a change. But if you don't have a strategy already with it, you're late and you have to speed up as a company.
So, okay, this is for the company. How about the state as a state? Because I read that India has a blockchain strategy.
I think
Dubai,
almost all of the states are, they already have a strategy or they are preparing their own strategies. When it came to blockchain adoption, majority of the companies started with CBDCs, with central bank digital currencies, right? Because at the end of the day, again, we say the biggest disruption of blockchain is in currency, right? In the value exchange, right? So that's why the governments and states are very worried about not understanding it or not keeping up with it or not regulating it. So they want to be involved. And Sweden was the first country that came up with a strategy for CBDC, central bank digital currency, which I don't think is the smartest way. I am one of the ones who is against CBDCs. I don't think it's the smartest way of adoption of blockchain is state-wise, unless it's a blockchain-based CBDC. That is different because not all of them are blockchain-based. But to give you a statistic on that, a number, I think I don't remember the numbers exactly, but as far as I remember, 83% of the countries in the world, they already have a strategy for CBDC.
okay,
60% of them they have a started, or maybe you have a number for that, but they have started with some sort of proof of concept, and many of them already have CBDCs in place in pilot.
okay. I read that UK also have a CBDC issuance this month, or
China also has
China also.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
a lot of countries already have CBDCs in place. At
So
least a
the
strategy for it.
okay, so the CBDC strategy is the same important as the blockchain as a whole for convert the
No,
no.
no. It's a good start.
Yes.
It's a good start, but it's not the
Not
blockchain
not
adoption
not not not
strategy.
enough step to be
Yeah.
make
Especially
a
exactly. Especially if it's still a centralized CBDC. What is the point? If it's a centralized CBDC, it's about only digitalizing the paper money, and that is not blockchain, right?
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't show the nation that there's no corruption in the governments. But of course, it's very difficult. That I know that majority of the countries today, states are really working hard to come up with some strategy because they want it or not, it's happening. They stop it or not, it's happening. They ban it or not, it's happening. So and they cannot really control it. So they have to come up with a strategy for it. But it will be a very complicated way for the pathway for them, basically. But it has to happen.
Okay, Zara. So what are the main rules of blockchain? Who works for blockchain? If I have blockchain solution, who work to implementation blockchain in our company, developer or what?
If it's a enterprise solution. So, for example, today at MetaBytes, we are what we call what the community calls us builders. That means we build blockchain solutions for enterprises. Sometimes when enterprises are really big enough and they have resources and they have the knowledge, they can of course build the blockchain in-house, but the majority of the times they have consultants like us who build blockchain platforms for them. And if it's a public blockchain, then there's a community that is supporting the building. Yeah. You are muted, Zakaria.
We can see some. We can see some comment. I think maybe 30 people on live today, and 43 heart for the first time.
Well, that is good. 43 at 10 a.m. in Egypt. Isn't it good numbers?
Yes, today is very early time.
Yeah.
All of the people, thank you. Good. Dr. Mustafa Abdel Qadir, thanks a lot for this event, especially for the speaker. Dr. Mustafa,
Thank you.
you know, the eggs taxation administration in Egypt.
Wow.
So he is an awesome
Oh, thank you
person.
so much for joining us.
Yes. Also, this Dr. Samir Abul Futuh, thanks a lot for the speaker.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Samir is my professor, and he's one of the key accounting professors in the MENA region, especially in accounting information systems. We have another question, but there is very very big question. You can see it.
Yeah, we can look at it.
You can read it from the comment, because
I can read it in the comments. Okay. I can. And who was the question from? Oh, yeah, here.
Ibrahim
Hello. Do you think that will be a great job vacancies related to blockchain and the relationship with financial services in the next 5 years? Let's answer this first, and then we go to the rest of it, because there are some different.
Yes, very, very big question, but Ibrahim is from our audience is a very good person.
No, but I think it's good questions. So I'm just going to take it.
Yes,
part by part.
Very long question. This is not question. There is a paragraph.
Exactly. Do I think it's a great job vacancies related to blockchain? Absolutely. I was actually thinking of it the other day. If you would have looked and checked LinkedIn job last year or 2 years ago and just typed blockchain, almost nothing would come up. Very limited number of jobs would come. But if you check today, wow, there is a lot of job opportunities. If you start working with blockchain, you will not be unemployed for the rest of your life, at least. I definitely say that. There's a lot of job vacancies. And whether in financial systems, and not only in finance, of course, when it comes to fintech, there's a lot more opportunities, and there are more risk-taking in fintech in general. So there's a lot of more opportunities.
Okay, where to start, Zara, to get a good job on blockchain? For example, what are the different types of jobs or the rules on blockchain, and how I will be qualified in something, one of them?
So there are different types of jobs you can have. If you're a technical person, if you're a developer, right, get yourself familiar with developing languages. Get yourself familiar with Solidity, and today with this Binance Smart Chain, it's extremely easy to start as a developer. So all of these blockchains, they have their communities, they have their academy, they have their support system that you can really learn have a self-learning a lot yourself. And once you are done with that, get yourself a mentor. Definitely in whatever job you want to be in blockchain, get yourself a mentor. And because your mentor, probably whoever is in the field already, in the blockchain field, they already have a lot of network that they can help you with. But if you're not a technical person, definitely get yourself basic education, or like education of blockchain and blockchain architecture, and blockchain solution use cases, designing use cases, etc. And you can always start with product ownership positions if you're a non-tech person. And there's a huge opportunity and chance for economists in blockchain world, because when it comes to tokenomics, that is something that is very difficult for me to understand most of the times, because I'm not an economist. I try my best, but there's a big opportunity for economists in the market as well. And in general, I think another big opportunity is business-minded people who understand the technology, who can translate the value of the technology to technical, business-minded people with technical knowledge who can translate the business needs to technical needs. So there is a lot of different job opportunities when it comes to blockchain. Shall we continue with the rest of the question?
Okay, thanks Zara Zakaria for the webinar.
Yeah.
Thanks Salah.
Yeah, thank you. But let's continue with the rest of Ibrahim's question. Do you think the big organizations like banks and multinational companies will need blockchain specialists in the near future? They already are hiring. It's not near future. They have understood the need for it, and almost all of them have started doing something. But definitely the need for the blockchain specialists for them will increase and increase. Now I started a specialization on blockchain courses and the relationship with financial services and financial solution on Coursera with instead partnership and Professor Don and that is but Coursera they have good courses on blockchain, definitely.
There is a training or courses in actual world for blockchain. Not just courses, because I think theoretical course is good, but it's not enough to be good in blockchain field.
No, there are so many educations out there, right? So you don't even need to go to Coursera, or just go to YouTube, and there's so many content that you can actually start learning from. But when you want to really be a specialist, when you want to really be in the market, I always suggest to take a course with someone who's been hands-on in the industry. Because when I see the contents on YouTube, or there is a lot of things that I don't agree with there, because I have worked with them and I know things cannot be exactly how they are explained. So it's always good to have once you get yourself educated through self-education, then get a course with someone who is in the field, someone who has done things, because they teach you the tips and tricks. They teach you the reality of it. So you already have a basic, but and these courses are often private courses, companies or people who are offering these educations.
Okay. Salah, thank you, Zara, for webinar. Okay. Is it blockchain? Excuse me, and legal? Legal.
Is it blockchain? Yeah. This is exactly what we were talking about, right? Blockchain is just a technology, and the use of the technology, making it legal or illegal, is in our hand, right? A lot of criminals are using, they have websites. It doesn't make, web developing technology illegal, right? A lot of criminals use fintech. It doesn't use finance technology. It doesn't make it illegal. So it's a technology. Of course, it's legal. It's the science. And then it's about how we use it. Of course, to make it legal or illegal, it's about how we human being, make applications on it.
Okay. Could ask Zara. Okay, you can ask Zara.
Yeah, I could ask Zara, what about Elon Musk's tweet about Bitcoin? To be clear, I strongly believe in crypto, but it can't drive a massive increase in fossil fuel use, especially coal. Well, yeah, we actually kind of covered that, but we will go through it again. Yeah, we just talked about it actually, that there are different consensus algorithms, right? Like proof of work, proof of concept. But among all these consensus algorithms, proof of work, which was the first consensus by Bitcoin, is the consensus that uses a lot of energy, and is not green. And that was the story behind the tweet by Elon Musk, that Elon Musk accepted Bitcoin for purchase of Tesla 2 months ago, I think. And then yesterday he announced that because it is not green and it's not helping climate, they stopped accepting Bitcoin and they replaced Bitcoin by Dogecoin. And now we will probably see a price increase in Dogecoin.
Okay. Someone, Ramzi, asked about in Arabic how blockchain will affect tax system in general. How blockchain is a good solution to enhance tax system. I think it's will be.
Well, when it comes to taxing, if you compare countries like let's say Sweden and I don't know, I can't compare that with Egypt because I don't really know how the taxing system works in Egypt, but let's compare it with Iran, okay? And so today in Sweden, basically, when it comes to tax declaration, everything is digital, everything is clear, everything is transparent. And you have this, when it comes, most of the times you're actually given money back by the tax office, which is quite rare in developing countries, right? It never happens in developing countries. But when it comes to countries like Iran, for example, the tax office is not digitalized. There's a lot of corruption in tax office. There's the companies can play around with taxes a lot. And lastly, we don't know where these taxes are gone, right? Today in Sweden, I can actually check to every single penny of the tax that I paid and see where it was used, whether it was used for elderly houses, for education, for building hospitals, building roads. But what happens to your taxes when you're paying it in Egypt? Do you know anything about it? No. Majority of the countries. So Sweden is one of the top digitalized countries. We are comparing it, right? So that is, if we don't go like too deep enough, but that is exactly one application of it. That as a taxpayer, I want to see where the tax that I pay is used for. If the government claims that I'm using it for education, I'm using it for building roads, okay, let me see it. That is one thing. Or the other thing is, I want to make sure as a taxpayer that the companies are also paying their taxes, that the companies are paying what they have to pay, and they cannot really escape the tax paying. So that is the other application of blockchain in taxing system.
Okay, Zara, is it visible for the government to make blockchain solution for taxation, which I think it's very hard to show how a government spend money to some specific area? I think it's difficult.
Why would it be difficult? Of course, that would be possible if you have a blockchain network built already, and that takes time. And it's not something that will happen over the night, but that is a real adoption of a technology for a state. When we come to adoption of blockchain by state, it's a whole different level, right? Because it's not about a company of 500 employees, right? And probably 10 stakeholders in your ecosystem. We're talking about a much bigger network. Of course, it's more time consuming and costly, but it will go there eventually. It has to go there.
Yeah, I think yes, it needs a lot of time to speak with stakeholders.
Definitely.
And cooperation to make a good solution
and
for
regulations.
something like this. Regulation.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We have another question from my friend Professor Hatem Mabrouk. I'm really happy to be with us, Professor Hatem. He's actually
which is
also
better for creating a token, Ethereum blockchain or Binance Smart Chain.
Prof Hatem is also specialized in a smart contract
Yeah.
and professor of business.
Well, that is a very interesting question. We have clients today that they come to us and they say, we only want to build on Binance Smart Chain. To be honest, so why did Binance Smart Chain came to the picture, right? Let's look at that. The smart contracts on Ethereum are perfect, but there is the gas fee when it comes to transaction in smart contracts in Ethereum made it very expensive for users, for companies to build on Ethereum. And the more expensive Ether is getting, the gas fee is actually getting more expensive. That means the transactions are getting more expensive as well. And that is not practical for companies, for smaller companies especially. Then Binance Smart Chain came into the picture. So Binance Smart Chain is less decentralized because the consensus that is used is the delegated proof of stake authority. Is proof of stake authority. It's similar to delegated proof of stake, but it's less decentralized, but much cheaper and faster. So in that sense, it very much depends on what application you have. But Binance Smart Chain was launched in September 2020. And I think 2 weeks ago, the number of transactions on Binance Smart Chain exceeded Ethereum in only a few months. And that is because it's much easier to build on Binance Smart Chain, much cheaper to work on Binance Smart Chain for companies. So it's getting adopted much more than Ethereum.
Yes. Dr. Mustafa Abdelkader, he's still watching us. This is good.
That's great.
Yeah, Egypt started to use blockchain and customs procedure. Yes, this is good for us.
I never knew that.
Yes.
Oh, but that is amazing.
Yes, in April 20 this year, the custom started to use blockchain solution, and in July will be the final use case.
Do you have any idea on what blockchain they are building on?
They build a blockchain on Ethereum network, using Ethereum network.
That is great.
And in coordination with a big one or a big corporation in this field.
That is really great, because when you have a blockchain,
I also make a video in Arabic about this topic. Maybe I will translate it.
No, but that is really good, because when you have blockchain in customs, so there is a lot of value you can add. Besides, of course, the import-export taxation, etc., you can also control counterfeiting, and that is a big support for brands, because counterfeiting is a big problem in developing countries. And through that indirectly, you can control, human trafficking, modern slavery, and so there's a lot of value that comes in with it.
Okay, the latest question: are the challenge of implementing the blockchain in the Egyptian market is great?
Great. I don't think the challenges of implementation of blockchain in Egyptian market is much different from the rest of the world. You can never compare, of course, some countries with, for example, United States, right? Because United States, they are ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to risk taking and innovation, and they have resources, they have everything. But the challenges are just different from Egypt to Sweden. Sweden, the challenges are regulations. We have a lot of restricted regulations that really is stopping innovation. In Egypt, you don't have those restricting innovations. You have challenges of culture and mindset, right? Because Sweden is then again a top country in innovation, and then so the challenges are just different. But challenges that Egypt is facing, challenges that Turkey is facing, that Iran is facing, that China is facing, to some extent even Sweden is facing. So the challenges are still, the same all over the world.
Yes, a lot of people thank you in Arabic. Good choice.
Shukran jazila. And happy Eid to everyone, by the way.
Okay, the latest. Okay, very nice. Okay, very best. I think a lot of people watch us in this day, in this time. I think this is amazing, great, because as you know, we Eid al-Fitr.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people don't have the time to watch us.
Yeah,
they have another place.
But was the Eid in Egypt? Was it on Friday or Thursday?
the start date of Eid.
Yeah, the Eid al-Fitr day, was it on Thursday or Friday in Egypt?
Thursday.
Thursday. Okay.
Thursday, yes. And still continue.
Yeah, but the holiday continues. Yeah, of course.
Yes. Another question, please. Okay. Implementation of blockchain just can be benefit by providing financial information resource of company, or will provide another tool for the company.
Implementation of blockchain technology just will benefit for providing financial information. No, well, it's definitely not limited to financial data. It's if we have today, we're building blockchain platforms for healthcare, telemedicine companies that has nothing to do with financial. It's about that secured record of electronic health records, and also creating those health data packages. We're also using, for example, blockchain in sustainability, recording water consumption through production of food. So there's a lot of different applications, and there are a lot of different data that the company can benefit. It's not only financial records.
Okay. We have another question, please. How will this affect the field of accounting and theoretical disappearance, especially with the development?
It definitely affects the field of auditing. It definitely does, because we have different blockchains, but the minimum that blockchain provides is the auditability.
Zara, as you know, I do a research master in how affect on audit field. So
okay, then you go with this question.
But I don't have time now to answer you.
But maybe you should have a video on that.
Okay. I always do a live session about how blockchain will affect in general on the accounting field. From few days, I just give how will affect the business in general.
Yeah, but then the interesting thing in auditability is that some blockchains record all the transactions, so you can see the history. With some blockchains, you can even record who wanted to manipulate.
Yes.
Right. The wrong, the invalid transactions. So you can also have them for other purposes.
Dr. Dalia Ibrahim, thank you, Zara and Zakaria, for the Dr. Dalia is
thank you.
Interesting person. Okay, there is a lot of thanks in Arabic. Thank you. Okay. So I mean finance. He asked about finance.
That is exactly what I mean. It's not only a tool for companies for finance, financial data. You can record health data. You can record, production data. It very much depends on what you're recording in a business.
Okay, the latest question. The latest question. What do you think the future of blockchain? This is the latest question.
The blockchain will only bloom and get adopted. Now that enterprises are in the picture, it makes it much easier for mass adoption.
Do you think blockchain we will delete the traditional internet, and using blockchain for all the information, whether it's financial or non-financial?
Not in the near future, because we need a lot of infrastructural work for that to happen. But eventually, maybe, but not in the near future. But what happens in the near future is more enterprises coming into the picture. So when it comes to public, now there is this hype for cryptocurrencies with public that people really need to also be careful there. But with enterprises, there is a lot of enterprises wanting to explore, and there will be a lot of state adoption coming into the picture for sure. So I only see a bright future for blockchain. That is the only thing I see. I don't see, well, the speed of adoption of blockchain is really going up logarithmically. It's not even linear speed, it's logarithmic speed.
I really thank Zara for being with us today and for all valuable information. We understand it from you. You are truly awesome person and done an excellent
Thank
job.
you.
50 49 heart. We hope to hear from you more in the near future.
Thank you.
Also, I thank you all our audience in this special days. And Jonas, today is
I thank you all for waking up and watching us.
Yes, I think this is really good one. Thanks, Zara. Thanks all. We hope all the best for all of you. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.